everybody. Thank you very much for making it to our October version of Principal's Coffee, and just really an incredible time of year at the school. There's always so much going on, whether it's our fall sports really heating up. What an exciting game it was at Pleasantville on Saturday. Exactly. We got some very proud parents here, hopefully. Our girls tennis doing tremendously, winning sectionals, moving on to states. Our soccer team's moving on to sectionals. Volleyball team just doing incredible. Swim team is still in it. Field hockey having a really good year. Sorry if I missed anybody, but the cross country team just putting up incredible numbers, and it's just really exciting to see all of the kids participating in athletics. And also we see the Varley players ramping up, getting ready for their fall performance. And then our clubs and activities, you really see that the kids are part of it now, attending different clubs. Our student government, that was really exciting. As I said, last time, the election went off without a hitch. We were using a ranked choice voting, which is brought to me by one of our students, our 11th grade student, who said, Mr. Walsh, I really think we need to do this in ranked choice voting. We went through it, he was right, and we were able to get everybody in their position. So overwhelming candidates in the 9th and 10th grade. We had 12 candidates for each of those positions. For the school-wide positions, president, secretary, vice president, treasurer, we had candidates that I think the highest we had was probably 6 in one area, and then the lowest was 3. So really good turnout, great participation. The student government is in the process now of coming up and developing their constitution. They are going to be giving office hours so that their student constituents can come and share with them all of their concerns. They're going to be making recommendations on our community handbook. They are going to speak at graduation. They're going to be members of different committees, and we are looking for ways to have them really involved. We are also happy that they are going to be part of Great Activity Board, and Great Activity Board has gone and started the planning for our first ever winter ball here at Byram Hills, and we're really excited about that because the kids have been asking for it, and we have parents from the PTSA who are going to be helping our advisors. We have a decorations committee, a food committee, a PR committee, and a ticketing committee. So if you have a special interest in any one of those committees, come and see me afterwards and I will get you on there. We had our PSATs last Wednesday, the 3-hour delay, that went off without a hitch. Really even smoother than we did last year. Now remember, it's all electronic, and this has been a big shift for us. So the electronic, the technology here really supported very well. Our technology department did a great job getting all of the Blue Book material on there, and so that went off very easily. And thanks to Christina and the counselors for getting everybody set.
But I'm okay.
Only a little bit. So the agenda today, we're going to go over grading transcripts and college admissions, and we'll show how, hopefully, how they're all tied together. And then I'm going to take whoever is left, and I'll go down and show where we are with the lecture hall. We are very excited to have that up and running as early as the end of next week, but we're saying November 4th as our soft opening with classes being scheduled in there. And right now we are going to have 5 periods scheduled in there. And so there's only 3 periods that we have any flexibility with. And we're really excited about the space. We really think it transforms it, puts it in a way that is going to be really collaborative. It's really going to enhance the learning of our students, especially our global scholars and our startup group. All right, so I wanted to thank members of our Board of Education, Mia and Petri, who are here, always so supportive of what we're doing here in the high school. And again, I'll get into the meaty topic that we have today, which is grading transcripts and the college admissions process. So I'm going to sit in a stool because I want it to seem like it's a conversation and I'm not yelling at you. The first thing I'll say is I know that this is a topic that so many of our parents are really passionate about. I know that people enter into it through a lens of just wanting what's best for their kids. As a parent of a junior, I understand where some of those stressors are coming from. I understand that you want to make it so that you are giving your child the best chance at succeeding in life. And a lot of that, whether rightfully or wrongfully, is tied to this idea of getting into college. So that's the lens that we're coming in on. I know people are passionate. I know that people are not coming in, angry at us or angry at the colleges or angry at their own children. We know that people just want the best. This is just an extended version of you parenting your kids. All right, so here we go. So why do we grade? So this is one of those questions, all right? We're here in the school and people have been getting grades forever, and it's all right for us to ask, why do we actually grade? What is the reason that schools always do it? See there, right? It's good to get feedback, right? The kids need to get feedback on how they're doing in their courses. We need to be able to identify for them strengths, weaknesses, areas for growth. We have kids that want to take, different levels of classes, and it's important that they have good feedback about whether they might be successful in that class. So if you have a student who wants to, take a higher level class that they're not ready for, well, then that might be a good indication to them. If you have a kid who's really getting very high marks and wants to take a course that might be a different below level for them, well, then that's a good indication that they might not be reaching to where they need to be. So again, right, our Board of Education, they have and New York State, they have set guidelines about whether kids can graduate, and passing classes is one of those indicators. So what is the passing level? We have to be able to demonstrate to the students and the community that we understand where that is, and we have a system for indicating that. And that's our grading system. Selection criteria for different organizations. We were at the World Language Honor Society induction 2 weeks ago, and one of the indicators they have are grades in those classes. Cum laude induction last week, right? Those are used on grades. Our honor societies in our building usually look at grades as an indicator of whether the student, can be part of it. On the outside as well, people applying for different scholarships, they'll ask for students' grades on that, and they'll apply, and those are on the outside. So we've been doing this for centuries, and it's a good way to be able to see longitudinally where our students are and how we're doing as an organization. So, when I was in high school, I could say, I got X, Y, and Z on this class. When my kids get it, I do a little bit of saying, are they getting it more than me, less than me? It does help to sort of put it in a line when we look at that longitudinally. And for us as well, we know that our students' grades overall are really going up. And that's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean that we're using grade inflation. It means maybe we're able to teach to our standards a little bit better. They indicate levels of mastery, right? So if we're looking at, whether we believe a kid really understands the topic, we look for that level of mastery around an 85% or a B to a B plus. And that we could say is a level where we would feel comfortable that the student, we could say that they have a level of mastery. Colleges use them to evaluate prospective students. Now this is one that I think gets the most play around here, and I think it's one that we can all speak to and we all have our own thoughts about. And we will speak to that a little bit later. it's important that research shows that high school grades are a better indicator of college success than any other thing. So if kids are showing that they have a level of mastery in high school, then that will come out and on our National Clearinghouse data that we receive every year, that does back that up. At the building level, right, we want to see how our programs are doing. We want to see if our programs are challenging enough or if they're at the right levels. So they give us an indication of whether maybe we either need to increase the rigor in a course or a program, or we need to dial it back a little bit as well. And ultimately, grades can be motivation, right? There's nothing like, you know, a kid getting a grade that they really liked and seeing them so proud of themselves, being able to repeat that feeling time and time again. There's really something strong and magical about that. So those are sort of the things that we put out there to the why we're doing what we're doing. Now, here are some of the stressors, and I know that there could be more. We're not going to talk about many beyond that because I think it's enough. So colleges and universities use them to make decisions. This is one of the big stressors that we have here because we know that there's a belief, rightfully or wrongfully, that colleges making a decision about a child and whether that child gets in can have an impact on their future success in life. And that could lead to, you know, different social structures, it could lead to different job opportunities, it could lead to, you know, different spouses, it could lead to moving to the area that you want. People can connect a lot to that one decision. And we've been trying a lot with Challenge Success to try to get that information out there where we don't really believe that that's an accurate way to look at it, but we know that it is out there, and we want to respect that, and we want to have discussions around that, and we want to have people offer their reasons why they may believe that. Right, grading systems can be arbitrary in many ways. So we had a discussion at our site-based meeting yesterday where we were talking about our character education principles that we've developed through our site-based team. Thanks to Sally and Tamara who are here, who worked on that. But, right, they're really important for us, but we're not necessarily grading our kids' ability to achieve those character education goals. But should we be grading those character education goals? Should we be grading a kid's effort in class? Should we only look at the achievement? Should we look at their growth? Those are things that are in constant conversations with teachers, with administrators, with educational researchers as well. What is the best way to have a student be graded in any course? And I know, look, when I was in the classroom, there were times when I would not grade homework at all. I didn't feel like it was something that all the kids were on the same level playing field on when they got home. So I would give extra points if students did it, but I would never take it away. There's teachers here and they have really, really valid reasons for why they would grade homework. Right? We talked about it last year. Makeups. Do all teachers offer makeups? Do all teachers offer the opportunity to retake? What do they think about missing assignments? All of those things are under the teacher's purview. It's well within their right as professionals to be able to have a system that they believe best indicates the student's ability in that class. However, we get it that creates some confusion, and that creates some discussions in the community. Now, we also know that we have a number of different conversions that take place here at Byram Hills, and that could lead to some discussions. So, for the most part, our teachers grade students on numeric scales. They get grades back, oh, I got a 90 on that, I got whatever it was, and then ultimately at the end of the quarter it gets converted to an alpha. So we have A+ all the way down to F. We do not have a minus here at Byram Hills. We have no minuses, so you really have it within each of those letters. You have two distinguishing areas. And I know that can create some questions, and I get it. I would too. We know what our district's mission is, right? And at the end of the day, we need our students to be productive and responsible citizens and leaders of the 21st century. When they walk across the stage and they graduate, we need to make sure that our Board of Education agrees with us that every one of those kids is a productive and responsible citizen and leader of the 21st century. Now, we know that they're getting the diploma around that, but where are they graded around that? And as an institution, we feel like we do a good job embedding a lot of those things in the different courses, but overall our kids are not getting a mission grade. And it's important to note that if they're getting a diploma because we say that they've achieved that, we really need to maybe look at how we're actually grading them and how they can self-assess where they are on that. Grading systems, these scales, they've been around for over 100 years. And whether it's the alpha scale or whether it's the 100-point scale, they really haven't changed all that much on a major level. Now, certain schools have gone to standards-based or mastery transcripts or competency-based grading, and certainly those things have really benefits. But overall, if you look at your college roommate who's in Ohio right now, and you ask them to explain how their kids are graded, you would pretty much have a pretty good system. Now, while the grading systems haven't changed, teaching and learning have changed significantly over the course of the last 100 years. Just looking at the last 2 years and the institution of AI and what that actually has done for teaching and learning, right? There's so many things that have changed. Grading has not changed even though there's almost, 3,000 four-year colleges in the United States?
3,500, 4,000 colleges.
Yeah, so what the colleges are looking at, right? Their admissions, they're looking at the systems that were developed 100 years ago, even though they're going to be training students for jobs and careers that have been evolving throughout those 100 years. So it's an interesting thing to think about when we're reporting our grades to colleges. Colleges are making decisions on majors and different schools, but they weren't even in place 100 years ago when the system that we use to grade kids was developed. All right, I'll just put in a little pitch for Ashley and Greg Carrillo. They came up with an infographic for Healthy College Talk that is on our Challenge Success page, and this is the perfect time of year to take a look at that. And if you're speaking to a senior, maybe just review that and give you some good advice on how to approach that conversation. All right, so grade inflation as well, that's another stressor. We know that during the pandemic, so many things got thrown off. We knew that the teachers were giving kids benefits of the doubt during that time. It was not the time to go hammering students when they were totally locked down and quarantined. We know that there was some of that happened, and that's across the board. On the other side of that, there was grade deflation in a lot of schools where you had 60% of your senior classes with failing grades. So thankfully that was not what happened here. But there is a sense that, if everybody's getting an A or an A+, then that's going to dilute what colleges see, and it's going to create this parity that's going to make it difficult for our colleges to make a really valid decision about which kid is worthy or not. And then New York State AP, ACT, and SATs. These are all things that, whether kids taking a Regents, an SAT, ACT, or AP exams, right? Those are not always aligned as predictors. So stress could be, well, I got straight A's in this class all year, and then in this region, or I got B's all year, and then on the Regents I got a 95. So they're not aligned, so something must have been off. So then it goes back to, or I got a 5 on the AP, but my grades were lower in the class. Shouldn't they be raised? So that misalignment of those grades and those scores sometimes creates a lot of stress for our parents and students. Are there any other stressors for grading that I could add to this? If anybody's out there thinking about it. I tried to, with Christina, collect as many as we could.
I think probably the biggest one I hear is when, you know, in the same grade, same class with different teachers, and they grade completely differently.
Yeah, so that goes to the, right, the grading systems being arbitrary.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just, I think that stresses kids.
Yep. Yes.
I think sometimes when things are subjective, you know, if it's maybe like a subject like English or not like where you got it's definitive whether you got the question wrong or not, where you can like argue with the teacher whether it was their point of view or not.
Yeah, there's always that balance between precision and accuracy, and whether, you know, the standards are being addressed, and the teachers need to know what the standards are, and then they create questions to see if the students are reaching them. But yeah, there is a lot of subjectivity in any grading, and if you look at either APs or Regents, you have different readers on those, and you have multiple readers. That's just not a reality for everyday exams here in the building. And you know, we hope that over the course of the quarter that we get it right. I think that there's this added idea that in math or in science, like the grade there can be more precise. And that's not always accurate as well. I think if you look at overall, what we try to do is we try to give enough opportunities and enough entry points where the student can demonstrate that, so that subjectivity does get limited, but it's a fair point. Yes.
One thing I heard from my kids is rounding up, so like how in one class, let's say 95.45 is an A plus, and one class is an A. So how is that same grade, two different letter grades based on the teacher?
Yeah, exactly right. And those are the conversations that we have as a faculty. And I think it's important that, right, and they know, they understand that if it's happening in another class, then it's either an expectation or it'll be an ask from a student. Now, we know that, like, I had a situation the other day, an 89.47, right? And the question was, well, that 89.47 should round to an 89.5, and shouldn't that then raise to a 90? And if you go to a math teacher will say, well, is 47 closer to 0 or to 100, right? And so they're allowed to have their own interpretations. I will say that in my workings with teachers, they're not out there every night saying, how can I make sure I keep points? But they have to, within their own hearts and within their own minds, feel comfortable that their system it's ethical for them, and that it's fair and it's transparent. And some teachers who round, they feel like that's the fair thing to do. Some teachers who don't round, they feel like it's not the fair thing to do, because then it's not really giving an accurate picture of where the kid's achievement level is. So I have to give them the ability to create that grade on their own. And once either there's a sense that that I have control over the grades, or the chairs have control over the grades, I say this all the time, the house of cards that we have comes crumbling down. The teachers have that ability to grade each student, and and the colleges have to know that it was the teachers that gave that grade and not the institution.
On the same topic, why is it that this school district doesn't just give number grades? Why is it 89.4 a B plus and 89.5 is potentially an A? Both kids can get an 89, and the kid who has the 98 gets the, you know, like it just why? It just seems like it causes so much stress for no reason.
I hear you, and this is one of those conversations that we have, and I know if we asked teachers, we might have a 51% of them saying we should go to numbers, and then the others will say no, because what we're losing when we go to a number grade is we actually lose accuracy, and we give a false sense of precision. So in any one of our grading systems, right, to the let's say to in English, to be able to say for certain that a student understood the content 88.4%, we would have to actually have the teacher say, all right, well, what does that 88.4% look like? And it's just not accurate to say that they could go down to that level to be able to say, I know at, to the 100% that's exactly where the student is. Now, the flexibility of having grades or having alpha grades, it's like you're looking at ranges. So, okay, we know that, yeah, you sort of fit within that range. Now, would we eliminate those discussions about going from a C plus to a B if we had it at a 79 versus an 80? I don't know, maybe. But I think what it could do also is it could go from having conversations about, going from an A to an A plus or a B plus to an A. Right? We have there's 7 of those discussions. And now we'll go from, from 35 of those discussions from 65 up till 100. So it's one of those ongoing discussions that we have, and look, down the line, I think what you see is the trend is moving away from numeric and going more towards alpha. If it was up to me, I would try to base it off of standards, 5 standards, and then we would go from there. We're really very far away from that, much further away from that than going to numeric. So. Yes, all right. We can shift on that because that's one of the discussion points that we'll have here. Are there any other stressors? We'll keep that in mind as we go to the next one. All right. So what our scales are, right? We have an alpha for our final grades. Those go on the transcript as alphas. We convert those into 4.6 scale, and then that 4.6 scale GPA gets reported to colleges. We report unweighted GPA. We're probably about 40% of the schools that I surveyed report unweighted. The others report weighted. We were able to have conversations with former college admissions counselors. And the good news is that when they are weighted, they get stripped or they get applied within that school. So I'll explain, and I'll let Christina explain more of that a little bit later. Unweighted GPA, we do use an internal weighting, and we apply that to determine cum laude. And what we do there is we add internally 0.5 to any AP course. That was a system that was developed more than 30 years ago. The reason that it was is because back then cum laude was the top 10% of all student body, and we continue to use that because the system allows us to give a little bit of extra boost to students who are taking courses that they can't get credit for in college. So for valedictorian, salutatorian, we apply that same ideal to AP courses, and then we also apply it to science research in the senior year. And again, students in science research are able to get credit through the State University of New York. Yep. Oh.
Sorry to put you on the spot, but maybe a good time to ask. Why don't you weigh the so-called these A courses, the advanced courses? What's the articulation of the reason for not weighing those with the AP? And then why not weigh science research in also calculating cum laude? I mean, obviously, you put an additional weight on it, and given that it's 12, potentially 12 college credits, why not weigh that for cum laude as well?
Yeah, it's a great question. And look, we had a terrific conversation in the summer. There are a number of different takes on that, right? And I think from the historical version of that is, well, are students able to get a college credit? And is it really seen as a class that an outside organization is going to view differently. And while maybe colleges will look at kids who take, let's say, like a Chem A or an advanced class like taking Bio A in their freshman year, ultimately, we know that when they go to the colleges, they can apply and get credit for those AP courses that they wind up getting a 4 or a 5 on. So the overall reason is because those are choices that students make that allow them to get access to some of those courses where they are going to get that additional college credit. So there's a really a great subjectivity to that as well. And what we're going to do is we're going to start making judgments if we do start applying those, and we're going to start getting people making decisions that are not right for all those other reasons that we spoke about for why we grade. So if we were to say, we'll give you X, Y, and Z to get into cum laude, first of all, I think we're basing a lot of it off of just getting into cum laude. And while I think it's a terrific achievement, the idea that that's going to somehow create opportunities for students or take them away, I think you and I spoke about that that's not a reality. But again,
I disagree with that.
yes, and we can speak to that as well. But again, the idea that we would do that and we would engineer that so that we could create those opportunities for cum laude or valedictorian, salutatorian, that's really reverse engineering.
So if I have a teacher who says, go back to school night, and I have a physics A teacher that says this is going to be this is going to be harder than a number of AP courses that your kid's going to take. Don't expect your kid's going to come home with A's from this. You hear the same thing from the advanced calculus. This could be an AP course. We're teaching calculus. That to me seems like a very good reason to actually weigh those classes, because really ultimately you're weighing classes where you're saying there's an advanced level of thinking, there's a certain rigor to the class that's required, right? So just weighing an AP course is arbitrary. Don't you really have to weigh courses that really have the advanced rigor? I mean, isn't that really what we should be looking for when we're weighing courses?
So yeah, look, I understand where you're coming from and I understand the question, but again, it's really starts to have us start to apply judgment. So would that be the same for advanced drawing and painting?
Yes.
Would that be the same for a student's third year in orchestra?
Well, any class that you consider advanced, that you have an A, which I would argue should be an H, but okay, if it's an A, any class that you have an A, you weigh.
Okay, right. I understand your argument. And what is your sense then? So you're not saying that we should wait to get into just cum laude. You're saying that we should wait and then send those weighted grades to colleges.
No, I'm saying I'm keeping it very simple. I won't argue weighted versus unweighted for colleges. I'm saying for purposes of cum laude, which is an academic honors society, that students who are spending 4 or 5 hours a night studying for these advanced courses should get some kind of recognition of that by having a weighting system to determine cum laude. Because the problem is, from the way I see it, and there's these common data sets that are out there. Mm-hmm. We can talk that top 10%, we don't do rankings, and that's fine. But the top 40 schools, other than Michigan is the only one in the top 40 that doesn't look at class rank, it doesn't publish what the class rankings are. These schools, Vanderbilt, 92% of the kids are in the top 10%. Now, we don't have a ranking, but we have a cum laude society, and we say in the sheet that goes in the profile, it says we're a member of the cum laude society. But
again, your information on that is inaccurate. We know that there's more than close to 3/4 of schools no longer rank their students. Let me put a pin in that. I'll go to Mia's question.
Actually, it was a very similar point. I was going to say that their class ranking is cum laude, and tells colleges who's in the top 10%. So I would argue that cum laude does mean something. It is important.
So my question about that is a college reporting that
from looking at a profile and saying this student falls in a general area, or are they taking a number that is a direct rank, 45 out of 200? Because I would venture to guess, first of all, I don't think the colleges have the time to sit there and go through a ranking like that.
That is exactly.
Right.
So that's the point.
Right.
The AI.
So it's not like, oh, well, if you give it to me, I'm just going to accept it. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to see, where is this student? Where is the rigor in the 5 academic courses? Okay, 5 content areas. What was available to that student in a given school? And were they in those courses? So that's where they're getting the credit for being in the calculus versus
But here's
the
the
pre-calculus.
problem. Here's the problem. 7 years ago, and I'll use UCLA as an example because it's the most obvious one. 7 years ago, 30,000 people applied to UCLA. Last year, 120,000 people applied. So what's happening, and I can give you firsthand because I'm on a board of trustees of a university, and what we spend a lot of time doing is figuring out with admissions how we move with the time. So 4 years ago, it was obviously, you know, whether you're taking the SAT or ACT, testing score optionals, right? That changed admissions. What that did is that created many more applications because people now are just applying to schools that they normally wouldn't apply to because they're prohibited by the test. So if you take UCLA, in UCLA, because of this, they don't look at class rank because they have determined that they can't, all the California schools can't go through. But if you look at Duke or Vanderbilt or University of Maryland or Ohio State that are getting 60, 70,000 applications, they are hiring people, they're hiring part-time admissions counselors to come in, right? And then some schools have AI. So they're not even getting to the rigor. They're looking first. They've got 60, each admissions person has 5,000 applications in front of them. They're not looking to see whether Byram Hills, whether a student is taking physics A in the first go-around.
So let me lower the temperature on that. We know that they actually are. And so while I understand that you have some really good information, what people should know about in this is that we're really talking about the top 40 colleges in the entire country. I think, you know, we've spoken about that.
Yeah.
And we know that there are close to 2,000 four-year schools in the United States. So I do want to thank the community that we are able to have this level of conversation about the top 40 colleges that in the country that our kids will be applying to. Now, I will tell you that we know that our students come back and our alumni come back and we say, how did you do? Did we prepare you? And you could ask any one of these parents here who has a child who's graduated. They will say, holy cow, Byram Hills had me so well prepared. You know, when I was with my peers, I was able to do X, Y, and Z so much easier and so much earlier. And there's no doubt that Byram Hills it prepares our students for colleges, and I would put us up with any public school in the country.
I agree.
Now,
And hats
good.
off to you.
So again, at the end of the day, right, we know that our kids are coming back well prepared for college. Now, what we're looking at here is saying, okay, well, based on what we're doing at Byram Hills, if we waited, I still don't believe that they would be better prepared to come back and tell us how well prepared they are. So what we're doing is we're trying to engineer a little bit of better opportunities for them to have access to those 40 or so schools in the country. So that's really, I just wanted to frame, because I know how passionate we are, and I just wanted to...
But there's nothing wrong with that, though.
There's nothing wrong with it at all, and we're very lucky to be able to do that
But
here.
why not engineer that, though? Like, shouldn't we be engineering that?
Because we know that that's not accurate.
But
And
you
we-
engineer it by counting science research for valedictorian. Why not count
Yeah,
it?
and look, and that may go back to when Bill Donahue or Rennie Schwartz had a conversation with a parent, and they put that into place all those years
Yeah,
ago.
just because it's something that we've done in the past, we've got to look at things going forward and seeing if they're the right. Like in the real world, when you're out in business and you're a supervisor and you say to somebody, "Why are you doing it that way?" and they say, "Well, that's the way we've always done it." That's never, you know, what we say as business leaders is well, let's look and see, should that be the way that we're doing it now?
So I hear you, and what I would be more impressed with your argument was whether you said, not about cum laude, but about the way that we report our grade distribution. Because we know that that's really the way that schools are looking and ranking our students. So they may do them and they may apply that, but that's done through the grade distribution, and that's really where the discussion that we're having really needs to be.
But the grade distribution, you have 45% of the kids are getting a 4.0 or greater. So that discounts the grades from a college perspective.
Exactly. So we asked that same question about, all right, well, is this a disadvantage to our students? They said, well, it could be if the SATs and ACTs didn't back that up. So in schools where you have grade distributions that are really high, they will apply those standardized test scores to see whether it's actually a school that is rigorous or whether it's a school that just hands out A's. And luckily for us, they know that it backs it up.
They're looking for the alignment between the courses that a student took in high school, their achievement in those courses, and then the GPA, SAT, ACT scores, if a student indeed submits that, to see whether or not there is an alignment. Is this student really capable of achieving those grades?
But wouldn't they first be looking at, okay, let me just look at anything over a 3.5, and then just go from there?
So, but they would, but again, like we had a discussion and they said, yeah, we got, there was a school in California that had a 9-point scale. And all right, then there's a school that has a 3-point scale. They look at it based on what the scale of the high school is.
But we're reporting, when we fill out the Common App, we're reporting on a 4.0 scale.
You're reporting on a 4.0 scale, but then when we send the GPA, it's at about 4.6.
Just again, one of the questions, stepping back, you said like approximately 40% of the schools across the country are doing unweighted GPAs. I'm curious how many in Westchester are.
Yeah, so when I reached out to the peer schools, it's roughly 30 to 40%. I didn't hear back from every one of them, but I'm part of the Southern Westchester Principals Association. So for the most part, they're moving away from it too, because they know that it leads to anxiety. It leads to the idea that people are going to chase, things that can boost their GPA, and it takes away from the really authentic conversations about student learning. And we see it here when students are making those choices about, taking an AP class that maybe, they didn't get recommendations from. We see that it weighs on them. So I think you would see most of the research and the data moves when you're looking at student wellness is moving away from weighting.
But there's a flip side to that. There's parents, and I've talked to them, who say to their kids, you know what, you shouldn't take the honors classes because you should get an A+ in the standards classes. And that's actually, they're unwittingly hurting their kids because rigor is such an important element in schools, but rigor only comes in as a second level. The first thing they're looking for is where your grades are. But there are plenty of parents who are...
I wish we would see more of that. We don't see it. It doesn't happen.
What doesn't happen?
We're not getting those kids who are saying, you know what, I can get into the AP, but I'm going to go to that class to boost it. They're few and far between.
I've talked to 3 parents who are in this room that have had that conversation.
Yeah.
So.
I wish it happened more.
I just want to make one comment about this topic. Like, I personally believe we should weigh 120% because it should be recognized. And I think that if you're talking Ivy League schools, or if you're talking schools with a specific program, like an engineering program, I agree with you both. They're going to say, well, did you take the highest math class? And did you take the AP physics? They're going to put weight on that. And they're not so much going to look at the GPA in and of itself. But I think all the other schools, like good schools, like the Michigan, they are just going to spend 5 minutes on your application and they're not going to realize, well, this person got a 3.0, this person got a 3.5, but the 3.5, was easier classes than the 3.0. So I think that's the problem. It's like, if we're talking Ivy, that's a different story because they're going to scrutinize it. It's very hard to get in. But if we're talking other tier schools that are very good schools, and I've had people say this when I've gone to presentations at the schools, like like we spent 5 minutes on your application, we're not gonna look at it. They said they're not gonna look at whether it was an AP class or not. So I think that's the problem, where it's hurting a bigger pool of people, because not everybody from Byram Hills is in the top 5% and going to these Ivy schools. So that's what I'm afraid of, and we'll see, because my son's a senior, but, you know, I think that not having, he's taking every AP you can take, and I think it's gonna hurt him that he took AP classes instead of benefiting. Now, the other conversation is gonna benefit him once he's in college, that he's gonna really, you know, sail by and be like, I got this, yes, Byram Hills 100%
Are you looking
prepared.
for the name of the school, or are you looking for your child to be successful?
So
Well, yeah.
Well, it depends on what your kids' majors are. If you want your
we've
son-
hired a former Ivy League head of admissions, and we've had numbers of conversations with her about all of these questions. And what she's told us, and she's gone through it, she has no reason to fool us, is that if they go through, right, they do first the academic pass. Christina, you want to
Yes.
see what happens in the academic pass?
So in the academic path, that is really where a student is being looked at in the context of their high school. They, typically the most competitive colleges are pulling out 5 subject areas, so math, English, science, social studies, and world language. And they're seeing what courses those students were in, what courses, first of all, were they in, given what was offered to them. And they know our schools, and they will say, was it the highest level? Is this the most competitive coursework that the student can be in? And then what were their grades in those courses? Okay, so that's the first, that's the all part of the academic path. So that's being considered, and really, I think it's important for people to hear this, that the other courses, while absolutely important, the AP Computer Sciences of the world, and, you know, orchestra, everything else, are typically not being considered at this first academic pass, because they need to make sure that this is a student who has taken a very rigorous selection of courses, and quite frankly, for the most competitive schools, has done exceptionally well. Okay, so that's the first, that's the academic pass. Along with that,
So that gets the applicant pool down to about 60%, right? So you're looking at, all right, you're applying, the school gets 100,000 applications. Maybe.
So, we've got a couple of things happening at the same time, right? Since COVID and with the Common App, kids are applying to sometimes 20+ schools. These schools are now getting, as was mentioned, they're getting tens, sometimes hundreds of thousands of applications now. They can't spend 5
Yeah.
minutes going through every single one. So are we as a district making decisions that are automatically eliminating our kids from even getting minutes at an ISO?
That's not what that's not the feedback that we're getting. And remember, we have over 160 college reps who are coming in, and we're asking them,
we're asking
hey, do you wait? What's the feedback been?
Yeah, the feedback is predominantly for the most competitive colleges, about 75%, they recalculate our GPA.
Right, but you have to get to
So in the back, I know you've been waiting.
I know.
Yeah, I have a freshman, so this is all very new to me, and I can't speak from any area of knowledge, but it does seem to me, from what people are saying, that it's harder to get into college now, particularly from Westchester County, with what this gentleman's saying about how many applications are being submitted to the colleges. And it seems that there's so many different opinions, even just in this room alone, that I wonder, in the same vein that for when people were bringing up the literacy issue in the elementary school, with how quickly college application process is changing, even just with the advent of AI, have you looked at, and I know you're close to it and you seem super knowledgeable about this, but I'm just wondering if we could use the same type of like full hands-on deck, big, deep, sort of like current state of the quickly changing atmosphere of colleges and current state of how we're doing things, and then looking at what is working and what's not. Sort of just like a let's pause and really dig deep in it with many stakeholders, maybe business leaders in the community, and you know, this admissions professional that you're talking about, and sort of just take a minute to really assess what's happening in the current landscape, which has changed from even probably a few minutes ago.
Yeah, no, and thank you. You know, there are a lot of opinions, and I get that. But what I am really thankful for is that Christina and our counselors, they're out there on the front lines. And like I said, we have how many?
Yeah, we have about 130 colleges coming to visit the school, so we're asking them those questions. And also just, I appreciate your point. We have something on our Advanced College website. It's called The Pulse. If you read nothing else, I would read that. That is a summary, a sort of a white paper on the last admission cycle. Our counselors spend time over the summer digesting every piece of information, every email that came from a college saying, this is who we admitted, this is why we admitted them, this is what you can expect in the future. And we give you that information. And while I think what you're asking for is great, it would help us so much, it is such a dynamic time. For the first 18 years that I was here, life was steady. You know, I could predict, you know, I didn't need the scattergrams on Nuggets to predict things. But then COVID hit, we went test optional, a lot of things, there were a lot of changes in laws, etc. And we are.
And you couldn't predict the FAFSA
And I couldn't predict the FAFSA fiasco of last year. And so we are in a very up and down time, which is why this district has absolutely gotten on board and allowed us to hire an admissions consultant who has worked in the field of higher education for over 20 years and is extremely knowledgeable, and she is advising us. And so we're so thankful for that. And I think that is a person who in real time we are speaking with about these changing situations. And I think that, and then doing the whole regroup at the end of the year and understand where we've been, where we're going, and putting that out to you for any parents, not just for a parent of a senior, it's also there for our parents.
I think it also would be good if, to Alyssa's point, the grade point average and the weighted for cum laude, and then the weighted altogether. There's so many topics, it seems like, that are polarizing, really, that I think it would be helpful, and me personally believe that the school district is so thoughtful in how we get to our decisions, coming from the top down, that it would be good, you know, and it would be good to know sort of what you're explaining to, like, how do we get to these decisions, because you can argue from both sides why things work and why things don't, and what's happening in this dynamic world we live in. I think it would be helpful to know, how did we get there? Like, how did we get here? Like, even, you know, years ago when I had a daughter who was bored and needed enrichment in, you know, little school, you know, in Coleman Hill, I just reached out to Jen, and she explained to me why they don't have, you know, what do you call it, like gifted and talented, or things like that. So I think, like, the more transparency we have, which I know you make an effort to do all the time, but of how we get to the decisions that we're getting to, I think would be helpful, because then we can sort of like have a back, you know, an understanding.
But we're hearing that the way they get to some of these decisions is it's just the way that it was in the past. So there is transparency behind that. What I'm saying, which I think is what you're saying, is let's challenge that notion, and let's be fluid, and let's be nimble, and let's come up with something that makes sense for today, not something that made sense 20 years ago.
Yeah, so, and to draw a parallel, right, yeah, with the literacy study, I wasn't part of it, but I think that there was this real question that maybe there were things that were broken in that system. Well, I don't want anybody to think that somehow our kids are not going to be getting into these really top-tier colleges, because they're still going to get there. Every year we can come back and we can, you know, we had feedback from Penn one year that the reason that our kids didn't get in was because they didn't take enough AP Bio. The next year we had all of those kids taking AP Bio, and they changed it. They said, oh, now we want Calc AB, right? So, right, the way that they're designing classes, if we were going to say, oh, if there was something that colleges could give us some sort of clearinghouse on how they wanted to design their student body that year, yeah, that would be more helpful for us than saying what we're doing on this side is not working, because we know the feedback that we're getting. It's real feedback.
Nobody's
We
saying
know
that
the
it's
kids
not
are.
working. We're just saying that there's ways to make it better.
No,
It certainly works.
No, we get that.
I think one thing that I feel as though we would want our kids to stand out, right? Like that's our goal on a college application. And yes, I understand the Penn States or the top tiers are going to dig deeper into the rigor of what these kids are getting into. But let's just say like a University of South Carolina getting massive amounts of applications right now. And again, touching on the changing environment, AI is here. I was in a conference last year with here at school with AI, and a child was interviewed by an avatar at college.
Yeah,
And so that's what I'm saying. So like, if
that wouldn't be a place that I
AI
would send my kid.
if AI is coming out and they're going to, as I said before, like just 3.5 and above and strip out every other kid for a University of South Carolina, for, I don't know, what, any of those other, I don't want to say good normal schools in a sense, not the big top ones. Why wouldn't we want our kids to
Why
stand
would
out?
you want your kids to go to a college that just does that without having any kind of like caring about what the actual student
Because
body looks
maybe
like?
they
That's my question.
I want my child to go where she's going to be happy. If that's
Yeah.
where she's going to be happy.
No, and I
that's
have the
what
same
it
feeling.
is.
I'm a junior and I'm worried that I'm gonna put my kid in a situation where she's gonna have her heart down in college and not get in, but they also don't know what they don't know. We don't know what we don't know. And I feel like if a college is just saying at 3.5, I'm looking at every kid below, we're not even looking.
Well, they're saying it
I don't
because
think
they're
I
getting
can
they're saying it
understand
because they're getting too many
applications.
applications.
Sure, but like, I mean, so they have their cutoff.
All right, so we have
No, because
That's kind of where I'm at.
and you had said 90% of colleges are taking our GPA for what it was.
I don't know about that
No,
percentage.
I don't think I said that, but what I was speaking about was the whole of all of the colleges that our students apply to. I would say it's more about 50%. I would say it's about 75% for the most competitive schools. Chris and I were talking about two different things. I wasn't at his meeting.
I feel as though you said that 90% of the colleges are taking our GPA for what it is.
They,
A lot,
no,
a lot of colleges.
75%,
Yeah.
75%.
No, I said it the other way around. But here, what I do want to say is, I would imagine that a USC, such a big school, does have people taking those courses, converting them into some kind of a GPA that makes sense for them, because they can't possibly.
what about those who just report numbers?
Good point.
Do
Well,
we all
good point.
agree
What
that
do they
they're-
do?
that
They
these
have
schools
to
are
have
hiring
their system
part-time
that they
admissions
make it
They all do.
all, like,
They all do.
level, so
Right,
that
but
they.
these part-time admissions.
All right, hold on, we have a number of conversations.
So my son made, was a junior, made a very valid point the other day of why these classes shouldn't be weighted when you're younger. So he said, he's a math and science man, and that's what he excels at. And he's taking English this year, which is very much a lot tougher for him. And he wanted to take it, he said he couldn't take it regular, but he wanted to. He said, when I'm in this class, everyone talks about smart in the school, and it only shines on the kids that have been advanced from 7th grade. He said, now I'm in this class, and I don't look very smart. He said, and all these people that people think maybe aren't smart, they're brilliant in English. He's like, they're guiding and helping me. So he's like, I don't think we should be weighted based on what we learned when we were, 12 years old, because the whole world isn't STEM. That's just one aspect that's accelerated earlier in Byram. So, should, like, let's say my daughter was in 9th grade, who did not excel in STEM classes, but what if she's really brilliant in English and history? I don't know. She should have her chance, not based on just what happened when she was 12 or 11 years old. And that's what he came to that conclusion. He said, I take the classes that I take. If he's taking physics A, he knows it doesn't make for cum laude or for, valedictorian, but he's like, this is the class I want to take. I love it.
And that's why I'm very happy that he's on my grading committee. Student grading committee. Yes.
So just, this is kind of a little bit outside the tier of like a cum laude group, but we have like 200 students in the senior class, and so cum laude is 21, maybe top 20 is top 40. There's still another 160 kids in that. On our profile sheet, we have like the grade distribution that 40% of them have a 4.0 or higher. So now there's like 100 kids that are now bucketed
Well, that's why we don't rank. And that's why most schools who have really high rigor, they stopped ranking because they don't want, and the idea that somehow colleges are saying, Byram Hills cum laude, we know that this is their top 10%. They're not going through that process. What they will do though is they will look at that grade distribution, and they know that we're not ranking our students because we're a pocket. We're a pocket of really high, very successful schools. They know that students, when they come from this pocket in this area, that they tend to graduate within 5 years. They tend to return after the first year. They tend to be really successful in colleges. So, like, I think most of those schools that moved away from ranking the way that we did, they did it because they didn't want to shut out those kids who were performing at a very high level.
So, I get it, so commodity rate, what does that graph provide value to?
Because and this is the feedback that we've gotten. And any student who's applying, they're going to ask what was the highest cumulative GPA of any student in that school. Whether it was 106 out of 100, whether it was 4.6, whether it was, whatever scale, that's how they're going to set the bar for our students. So because we have a 4.6 scale, that's where they set the bar for us. They look at where the student falls in within that, and they'll look at just, okay, so this kid was a 4.4 out of a 4.6. That's,
But what value does that graph provide on our profile that shows that 40% have a 4.0 or higher?
because they need to know where our top scores are. So
You're
they,
giving a top 50%, kind of, right? Or like the top 40%.
yeah, and then so right, the idea, right, is that then that really doesn't mean anything, right? If everybody's falling in that scale. But what they will do, and we've gotten that feedback, and that's why, like in certain ways, if you really wanted to tip your scale, is go and take an SAT or an ACT. Because we've been told that would be one of the things where if you have that score, that they will eliminate you from that academic pass with a score below a certain range. They won't do it with GPA until they realize what the highest GPA in your school is.
But again, what value does it have saying, well, that, somebody had a 4.05, they're in the top 40% bucket, and if somebody had a 3.93, they're in the next 50% bucket. It's not adding value to that 40% bucket because they're going to take those classes and kind of put them in context. So I feel like it's only hurting some of our students to have that graph there, right?
Yeah, we have to have the graph. We have to show where our students are falling. If we don't rank, and the expectation is that we would have that if we don't rank.
We have to report where
Our students are falling.
students are falling.
Yeah. I agree that it's probably not shedding, a lot of light, but I think it's what we have right now. We might even look to see how we can do that profile.
Yeah, I know. Christina was upset with me last year when she came, and it made it look like that we were a little bit too top heavy, and so I said no. We have to we got to report our genuine scores, and so we may look at differentiating it a little bit more. So Ilan, I know you had spoken about the feedback that you got was that colleges are using rankings. And we know that as many as 3/4 of schools that are applying don't use rankings. They don't rank their students. Maybe you have different.
Do you look at the common data set? Do you guys value the common data set from each of the colleges?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that has.
That's the right. It's our clearinghouse.
So if I pull up a common data set, I'll pull up University of Maryland if people don't want me to look at the top 40 schools and they want me to look at a 42nd school or a 38th school. But if you look at any of these schools at the common data set, and you go and it says, it's right in the admissions part, this is where I'm getting this. It says basis for selection, relative importance of factors in admissions decision. Rigor of secondary school record, very important. Class rank, very important. Academic GPA, very important. Recommendations, considered. Standardized test scores, considered. Application essay, important. So I've got 30 of these common data sets right here. And other than Michigan, which doesn't look at class rank, all the others, at least 29 out of the 30, rank it somewhere between considered and very important, with very important being 20 out of the 29. So that's where that's where I'm getting this information from. And then they tell you, then it says percentage of the class, of the admitted class, in the top 10%. And at Wisconsin, it's 56% that are in the top 10%. At Michigan, it's 86%. I mean, not Michigan. At Virginia, it's 86%. At Duke, it's 96%. At Johns Hopkins, it's 99%.
And I would be willing to bet, right, that they don't say through the different pockets, right? So we're looking at the lower Westchester County or the Boston suburb pockets, or whether it is the suburbs of San Francisco. They're not breaking it down and differentiating it by those pockets, right? Because they're saying that, right, this student who comes from Ozark, Missouri, right, who's applying there, yeah, they're going to get there. We have pockets, and they really look at those pockets, and it's a data set for them that they know that they're coming into those pockets, that those kids are going to look differently. I would also go back and I would call them and say, listen, we know that most of the schools in the country now are not weighting their kids. How do you, or not ranking their kids? How do you put that down there as something that is highly regarded? Because I think that that's going to have that, that'll lead to some other conversations.
What colleges do, I mean, I have had these conversations with the director of admissions, the dean of admissions at the University of Delaware, so I understand very well how the process works.
And I know that they would say, Elan, right? I know he would say, well, you know what? You're right. A lot of the schools don't rank anymore. So what we do is ... Maybe you come back to us and they have a secret formula where they're applying it internally.
They're using AI and other mechanisms to just weed out kids who aren't in the top 10%.
But that would be a great
problem. I understand that for most people, this isn't like something that they're interested in.
You're only talking about 20 kids.
Right. I'm recognizing.
I mean, there's so much more to these kids than this. They're grades. These kids are well-rounded kids. They get so many wonderful experiences here, whether they play a sport, they act in a play, they run a club. I mean, you're just talking about these kids' grades. I have two kids who have come out of college. One is finishing up at Bucknell, one just finished at Georgetown. Let me tell you, that Georgetown kid got flat out rejected from Vanderbilt, from Cornell, from Dartmouth. He was cum laude. He was top 10% of his class. He was a science research finalist. Like, they're kids.
And Georgetown is a top 20 school. So
I know, and he did fine. He has a job, but he didn't.
Of course,
but he didn't. But there's so much more to him than just
my
his
point
grades.
is that I don't want to hijack or monopolize about the top 20, but the bottom line is, for some of us, that's important, and I'm not going to apologize for coming here, watching my kids study 4 or 5 hours a day, and say, well, this class isn't any more, weighted than a standard class. I'm not going to apologize for
All
that.
kids here
Nobody,
study 4 or 5 hours a day.
and they're
no
not
matter
in-
what
I don't think
classes
so.
they're in.
I don't think that.
Right, so again, I think, and thank you, Lauren, for sharing that. And like when you think about the kids' experience going through here, right, and you think about what you really want them to be thinking about, you want them engaged in what we're offering. And I think of either Brady or Spencer engaging in what we had to offer. And yeah, some things didn't go their way in the applications, but you know what? They set themselves up because they had all of this other experience
This
as
all came
well.
from a slide that had how you weigh cum laude. So I didn't say a word until we got to that slide. Had that slide.
So I wish that I could say one way that getting into cum laude, that college would automatically say that they're in the top 10% and make decisions on it. That's not the case, and alternately, it's not the case that kids who aren't getting in there are not getting into some of the schools that she mentioned. Yeah, that we're still, and I had shared with you, we went back and we looked at that data, and we have a number of, from every year, students who are not getting into cum laude, who are getting into those really, really competitive schools.
Do we track their ability and their success from the different colleges? Like, I know that that's data that's out there, regardless of the college. Because I know, like, my husband works in finance. A lot of people do not hire from Harvard and Yale anymore because of the type of people that were coming in were doing the work at the level that they wanted. They prefer a non-Ivy, honestly. And
Yeah, I wouldn't, you know, like that, we have the clearinghouse, and I wouldn't go and disparage anybody from trying. Look, I think when students and parents think about, well, if I could get into maybe the most competitive college that I am, you know, that I can get into, then that's really what the bar is, right? And I think we have a lot of families who have private counselors on the outside, and the private counselors are hired to do just that. It's to get the best opportunity to get into the most competitive college. And that's not aligned a lot of times with, you know, the conversations that we have with the students in the courses, and that can lead to some difficult conversations as well. But I don't fault anybody for trying to think that I'm going to try to help my student get into, you know, the most competitive school. What I think I've been doing for years, and those in Challenge Success have heard, is that, yeah, I can appreciate that, but there's a better way to do it in that you look at, you know, your student as a whole, and you think about where they can have the best chance at succeeding when they get there. Look, a lot of times we get back feedback, kids really wanted different schools, it didn't work out, or they got to school that was maybe a little bit of a reach and it didn't work out and they wind up transferring. So we have all of that feedback and we take that. So I just wanted to shift, right? These are some of the questions that we put up there to our consultant. Number one, does ranking students impact college admissions? And again, what she discussed with us is, yeah, a lot of times it would if you're in schools that do not have, you know, that high level of rigor. Pockets like we're in here, they help. They help in certain ways and they hurt. Does induction, they asked this, does induction into cum laude have a significant impact on college admissions? And specifically, will this indicate to colleges that our student is in the top 10%? And she said, do you rank? We said, we don't rank. She said, no, then they're going to look at it as an academic honor society. The way that it would, she said, you know, that there are some schools that have national honor societies where 60% of their kids are getting it. They take it, they use it as a factor, but in that academic pass, they're not looking at it. Going back to that, we got sidetracked. Do you want to talk about the other areas there of that? After the academic pass, they go to service and leadership.
So they want to know what type of things are students involved with, very much extracurriculars, where are they spending their time, who is that person outside of the academic piece. And I think the last part is this intellectual vitality piece, which we're starting to understand a lot better in guidance, and we're having conversations with students. But intellectual vitality is where I think parents can help students have the most impact in college admissions. This is putting things, doing things, and having them be genuine on the college application that sets them completely apart from their peers. What can a student put on there that their peers sitting to the left and to the right of them cannot put on their college application? And how do we foster this intellectual vitality in students beginning as early as ninth grade, and really taking that to the next level and showcasing that to colleges and universities? That's where, if the student has made these other passes in that intellectual vitality piece, if this is where a student really comes alive, that's when they are a student that the committee is going to sit down and discuss.
And then committee, right, a lot of these now are getting down in the 5% range. And again, it's a marketing strategy for many colleges. They want to take in as many applications as they can, and they want their selectivity to be as low as they can, because it's one of those things where it looks like high demand, low acceptance, and they automatically start getting more applications when that happens tomorrow.
I just have a procedural question, actually, that doesn't address this. You say you have about 130 of these colleges coming. Are the juniors attending these?
Seniors only.
Okay, may I ask why? And this is sort of, by senior year, my assumption is based on the timelines that everyone talks about, which I'm not there yet, but they're already they've already kind of identified the schools and they've already decided perhaps where they're applying. Why are the juniors not, because junior year is really sophomore year, because I'm making my sophomore go along with my junior, but that's when we're exploring maybe what's the right home for them.
Yeah.
Shouldn't the juniors be meeting these colleges and learning about these colleges and feeling out these different kinds of colleges?
Yes, and I think, I would say back in the day, those meetings were definitely where you're learning a lot about a school and how it differs from another college or university. Most of the meetings now are focused for seniors. They're focused on what should your supplemental essay be on? What do you need
Wait,
to
so
know?
the colleges are coming in and they're talking specifically to the application? They're not
Yeah, a lot of
introducing
them.
their school?
A little bit. They are definitely still introducing their school in general terms.
So maybe it could be both? Maybe juniors and seniors
So-
could be attending these?
I think you might.
I'm
be-
going to say no.
Yeah.
I'm not having juniors. I'm not pulling them out
So
of
that's the other
classes.
piece, is
I
that
don't
the
want them coming
seniors-
out of classes. And we have a really great junior kickoff meeting. When is that? You want
It's
to put it?
it's the end of November, like November 28th, and so obviously,
And so when we have that, then I'm all right with juniors discussing where they are in the college process. Before that, what we would do is, we live in a community where I think a lot of people would start to even pull that back even further. Well, why not sophomore year? Why not freshman year? Well, with the families, look, you may have had those conversations going back to 8th grade. I think as a school, if we're really saying like we need to make sure that we're focusing on the student experience, then I'm willing to do it during that junior college kickoff meeting.
Possible that instead, and this is not just solely because, and this is a very personal thing, 2 working parents, not a lot of time to kind of explore schools with the kids. Is it possible that, from 2:30 to 3, before, some clubs and things like that start at 3, or practices or rehearsals or whatever, is it possible to have some schools come at that time to introduce schools to these kids?
You can also look online.
Look
They have
online.
so much.
I know, but I feel like there's a lot of, they
I think
spend a
we
lot of
really-
time
I'm-
online. I'm trying to have them happen. When I was in school 100 years ago, we met junior year with colleges, and it gave us an idea of what's out there beyond the sort of top 20, top 40, whatever colleges. There's 4,000 four-year colleges. I just think that these kids could get a little bit of a sense of what else is out there for them.
I think they get a lot of it from the internet. I'm assuming the internet wasn't.
But
Yeah.
it's true, like, you don't want.
No, I'm not suggesting pulling them out.
No,
I'm
no, I'm just
suggesting
saying
from
it's just-
2:30 to 3.
They're still working hard in their classes.
Yeah.
And it's a great time to maybe, like, I know you can't get to them, but they do info sessions online right now.
I know, I'm just,
But
I'm
the
thinking,
seniors.
They have avatars. Avatars will come out and talk to you. We'll have dinner in your family.
Go to the guidance website.
When you're
Give them the, they have profiles on colleges, sizes.
All right.
I didn't take college visits.
if they didn't go, you would have guidance on it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think if we're really gonna say that we want them to do it that we value what's here. I really, like after the college junior meeting, maybe we can look at something like that. But again, the reps that are coming in, they're leaving here, they're going to Briarcliff, they're going down to Rye. It's really hard to gather. They go back and they're doing a lot of their reading. They're reading applications. This is the time when
I would you ask our students personally as their principal, our juniors, would you want to have something?
I know that they would say they would, yeah. And sometimes I would have to say, yeah, even what you want, I have to say no to.
There's only so much time after school.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we touched on every one of these. I think the idea that C+ or lower on the transcript is going to automatically eliminate them from acceptance. It's not accurate.
What do you see with the SATs and ACTs?
Do colleges still look? Yes, they do. You're going to see more and more going back to that. Yeah. So looking at getting an AP course. So students taking an AP course on their own outside, they were really negative. Our consultant was really negative about this. Did not like the look at all. Felt that it sort of played into that idea about, we talked about our pocket, about that idea of privilege, access, and me. They did not like it at all. They said it was really what did they say?
The rare exception to that is if it's a course that we don't offer at Byram Hills and it is somehow tied to how the student, their intellectual vitality, what they're interested in, could be like an anthropology course or something like that, to go off and take that somewhere else, absolutely fine. But the padding of the transcript with outside AP courses does speak to just...
They said that she called it gamesmanship. It plays into the stereotype of the bubble. I won't say what else because it's not.
What about specifically like with the way the math program works, taking like pre-calc in the summer so you can take calculus?
That's
in the fall, is that okay?
That's different.
That's different. And they said, like, if I was a kid who really loved astronomy, and if we didn't offer an astronomy type of course here, if they were taking something at WCC and they wanted to go into become a NASA engineer and they had taken that, right? If it ties into what their that vitality is, then yeah, then they would weigh that a little bit differently.
Can you talk about ED?
Oh, ED and EA, does that have an impact on admissions? Well, you tell me.
It absolutely does. Obviously, early decision is binding. You're committing to one particular school. You are making it very easy for a college to plan out their freshman class. So if it is something that a student really feels like there's alignment between the school and them, obviously early decision does benefit our students, or there is I wouldn't say it's easier, but obviously there's they accept students that way, and that's to our students' benefit. Our students are prepared typically to do ED. EA is also could increase the opportunity for students to get into college because they are applying early when they don't have a better understanding of what their what their class is going to look like. So I think at this point, it's not even November 1st yet. We're up around 78% of the senior class has applied to at least one school. That's pretty impressive, and that is hugely a part of your families, helping your students be on top of doing their college applications and really providing them the support to do that.
We have seen a shift over the few years that the ED schools, they could be a slight reach for our students, and that would more times than not, it would still work out, even if it was just a slight reach. Now, if they're using an ED for a slight reach, by and large, it's not working out. They have to use an ED on a likely school. And we have seen that. It's been a shift. I don't know. I don't know what to attribute it to, but
yeah, to the sheer number of applications.
Yeah, you have the Common App just totally threw the whole system off. We have more international students applying. You have a lot of different Supreme Court rulings have made it better ability for students to apply and get accepted. So there's a lot of things out there that are always, changing the environment. So I was doing, I forget what it was, but I was at my desk one day doing a calculation, and with my 5 kids, I looked down at the number, and it was a $1.8 million to send my kids to school if they were going to private schools. So I was like, maybe going right into the workforce is not a bad idea. GI Bill. Jessica?
Did the admissions counselor talk about AI at all? And to Alon's point, you and I talked about it as well. What are they using AI for from what you're doing to sit through it all?
Yeah, so there are some that use it at different stages throughout. So you heard, I forget, somebody said they had to be interviewed by an avatar. What did we know? That was
It was a school in Toronto, and
oh yeah,
the
a
student didn't
Canadian
know.
school.
It was a Canadian school and didn't know. It was just an avatar that popped on, and it was really taken aback. There definitely, we're hearing that AI is being used, to give an overall read of, not make a decision, but maybe summarize everything that's come together. And I would say that's probably at the larger institutions. Your most competitive schools, I don't know that they're using it at that level.
So on the other side too, we know that they would use AI to try to identify essays that were not done by the student. Looking at, we know that there are students, not here of course, students who are out there who are using AI to do all their essays. So I would think that over time, it's going to be an arms race, and maybe what's the weight of those essays is going to actually go down, down, down. And the possibility of having interviews will go up, but I would not want to do it with an avatar, obviously. But colleges are use data like how many clicks, how many times you visited their Instagram page. Did you go to the college rep when they were at the school? Did you like their Facebook page? They have all of that data that they're taking into account. And, ultimately, like I said, our kids are going to be successful. They're going to be terrific. They're going to be productive and responsible citizens and leaders. And we do want them to hit the spot that's right for them. Look, I know that this has probably brought many questions up, and I really appreciate Alon's, reaching out to me over the summer and his willingness to have the conversation. I'm willing to have these conversations and hear your thoughts on it as well. I hope you do reach out to me. And again, if there's something that you think we didn't hit on, we're happy to answer it. Christine is available as well. I really thank her. I said, Christine, I really think we should have this in the spring. She said, no, let's do it now. Let's rip the Band-Aid off during the admission season. So
it's not busy exactly right now, so don't worry about it.
Any other questions that are popping up? Yes.
All the colleges that are coming on site to campus, the kids get word, but can the parents also, like how do we know as parents?
Yeah, that's
what
great.
colleges are coming and when?
So it's posted on our guidance website and on the advanced website, a list of colleges, but you're right, if the student does have that college listed in Naviance as a college that they're considering, they receive an email from the college saying we're going to be here on this date, and this is how you sign up, just click the link to sign up. So in both of those places, that's where you can see either the list that we have on our website or that way.
How do those colleges get chosen? Do they come to us? Do we go to them? Next,
Yes, so we have kind of like a calendar that's open, so if a college wants to come here, they go to our calendar, they sign up for a time. I know I've said this in the past, if there's a college that didn't come this year or a college that you would like to see, we're happy to reach out to that college and invite them. It's truly up to them whether or not they're going to come. Sometimes we're just not in their rotation in a given year.
And then after the admission season, the counselors, they go out, and there's years that we'll identify schools that we want to know more about, or we want to get information about why we didn't do as well as we did historically, or why we did better. And so we look at like different regions, and then we'll go out. look, we've been trying to put out there as well, Greg Carrillo sort of led it. The colleges, if you're thinking of ... you might also want to look at ... right? Our students, they apply to the same 20 schools. And I was in here, I forget, Wisconsin, and there was like 80 kids from Byram Hills in the information session. Michigan the same way. Syracuse, Indiana, Cornell. Right?
200 kids.
And which one?
If we had juniors in that.
Yes, exactly, yeah. So we do want to expand the range of, as colleges are, kids in the south are going to the south a lot more now, where we've never had kids going to Clemson before. We have them going there now, applying there. South Carolina, UNC, and Wake Forest, we always, had Vanderbilt, we always had. But we're seeing like the Alabamas, the Georgias, a lot more of those big SEC schools now. And I think it's really, a lot of it is during COVID, they seem to be still open during COVID and they were still partying down there and they want to be able to go down there. Some of them have really terrific programs as well. And so we do see that shift taking place there as well.
You sound like a parent of a junior.
I am, and a freshman. And I tell my freshmen earmuffs when I'm talking to the junior.
Speaking of the junior parent meeting, what can we expect as junior parents to hear in that meeting? Like, what kind of stuff is covered?
So
Briefly.
yeah, so we basically kind of just cover the basic elements, but then more involved about how to approach this with your child, what a parent can do, what a parent should be thinking about, and just the changing landscape of college admissions. How you all went about the process and what the process is like now are two very different things. So that's like kind of the plenary session. And then you split up and you get to ask your individual kind of question and answer session with your child's counselor. So, okay. And it's on our, if you want to know, it's going to be very similar to last year, and it's on, the video is up on our guidance website, so you could watch it. And it will be a little different, but yeah.
Hi, sorry, what does committee mean on what happened?
The committee, like ultimately, right, they'll shake out all the applications. They'll go through, utilize their systems, and then it'll go to a table of admissions counselors who are passing around the application for the student. And whoever did the initial read would then try to basically defend why they believe, and that's really down at the last little bit of decisions that they're making. But again, right, it would get down. We're looking at, for the big public colleges, are really around 7 minutes of overall reading of a student's application. When it gets down to those last little bits, it might be another few minutes. So, yeah, it's not fair to our kids. All of the goodness that they have in them, all of that work gets shaken down to 7 minutes.
If they miss school, what should they do?
If they don't go to the visit?
Yeah. So we have the name of the rep that was here, and that does happen. Sometimes students can miss, a class or something like that. We can provide the name of the rep, and the student can email them and say, very sorry, I'm in AP Calc, I couldn't miss it, or you missed the class or something like that. Just wanted to let you know, very much still interested or applying. But they should see their counselor if they can't make it.
Big college fair tomorrow night.
Yeah, so the one I think
Tomorrow, yeah.
So at County Center, there is a big fair, and that's just brace yourself. It's at Westchester County Center. It's kind of chaotic, but if you are looking for more information and want to see a bunch of different schools, that absolutely is an opportunity for students of all grades.
So a lot of the reps there that are the same ones coming here.
Yes. There typically would be, you're not going to get a real valuable conversation going because there probably is a line of like 15 students, but if you want to show up, shake a hand, take a card, and get some material, then it's definitely useful for that.
All right, very exciting time. So I'm gonna, anybody who wants to go see the lecture hall, and we'll peek into the library, we'll go on a little field trip. Thank you very much. Really appreciate everybody being here. I'm going to send these slides out, and then it also has our important dates as well.